Today, what I wanted to discuss is something I wanted to um, define as don't drink too much Kool-Aid. So when you pick up a score or have a lesson with a teacher, there's going to be some opinions coming your way on all types of matters. And the amazing thing is, um, classical music is the interpretive arts, so it's really up to you to interpret what you're seeing on the page, sort of distill the things you've heard over the years, over the course of study of a piece, and come to your own conclusions. Even within a schooling situation, take everything you hear from people in the know with a grain of salt. And this is especially true when, as you mature, as you get older, and you become more acquainted with more and more opinions, they start to collapse on themselves. So I've had situations where experts in matters have said one thing, experts on the same matter have said the inverse. And so where does that leave you? Well, if nothing else, it leaves you with the notion that nothing is really known about anything. It's really true. I mean, unless you have the composer um, by your side and you're working with the composer, and the composer has strong opinions on the way things are supposed to go, then it's up to you to decide the way it should go. Even when you have the composer next to you, I know with the Bartok solo sonata was written around 1945 when it was collaborated with a person whom it was written for, Yehudi Menuhin. Yehudi Menuhin pushed back and said, "This is unplayable. What to do?" And Bartok has written out exact metronome markings for the duration of pieces, of the duration of each movement. So saying quarter note equals 110. This is just an example in the one of the movements for the first third, and then the next third it says quarter note equals 60, and then et cetera, et cetera. And Bartok writes the duration of each chunk of all his pieces, all the movements in that piece. So it's pretty exact. Um, so the third movement, I believe, is supposed to last, I don't know, 4 minutes or something. And he marks at the end of the piece, like 3 minutes, 50 seconds. So you'd think, even when you have the composer pedantically telling you, hey, this is supposed to be this. When Yehudi Menuhin said, these tempos are crazy, Bartok was like, what? Oh yeah, don't worry about those markings. I was just writing down what I thought. And sometimes composers write music so quickly. This actually came up recently. I've discovered how quick. I'll think of it in a sec. One of the composers wrote one of his pieces. I mean, perhaps composers don't even give their pieces too much thought after they've committed it to page. So even when a composer has expressed very important details on pieces, and even then, there's so much subjectivity on what they actually wanted, or do they care enough. Again, in the case of the Bartok, I did want to really emphasize that. He said, I believe with regard to the fugue, he said, the fugue was written so quickly, the tempo is written so quickly that when Menuhin pushed back, he really did say, "Oh yeah, don't worry about the tempos. I don't know anything. I don't have an opinion actually about the tempos, even though if you look at the score, you'd think he was very opinionated." So that goes back to what I was initially saying, as well. That's when you have a composer on your side. It's subjective. Now, when you don't have a composer on your side, you're going to be hearing as I was saying, a lot of opinions on the correct way of doing things. I'm telling you, there is no correct way of doing things. I was berated for so many years on how to play a triplet in a certain time period. So we're perhaps in classical and leaning into the Romantic era. The triplet should be pedantically very spaced. So triplet again. If anyone's watching this that doesn't know what a triplet is, it's just a quarter. Well, it's a beat divided into three. So I'll play a quarter, a triplet, and then a quarter. So there's that pedantic triplet. It's remember Pamela Frank was the one that really the last person that really was in my face about that in a good way, saying, Nate, your triplets are just so they're not French enough. That's what she called them. They should call them very French to French the triplets. So what's typically heard in an orchestra or chamber music, sometimes you'll hear sort of or instead of bum 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 bum. And Pamela Frank was saying, there's a little bit of a hack. If you just place the second note earlier than you think and hold it longer than you think, then you'll start to really make really French sounding, she said, very French triplets. So I'm playing some Franco-Belgian piece recently, and it starts with, actually there's a bit of a motif in the whole piece. These triplets are sort of this leading upbeat to a lot of the ideas. And the piece starts with a triplet as a way of presenting the big downbeat. And, Franco-Belgium, you'd think to be in good accordance, it would be really quite square with the triplets. So the piece starts like this. Dun 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 dun. And that's the way I've played it. I've only heard it that way. And as it turns out, I'm just flipping through some YouTube videos preparing for this concert. And it's been a while since I've heard Eugenie Zai, the composer, violinist, play in a recording. I remember I used to listen to quite a few of his recordings. He recorded for Columbia Records somewhere in the early 20s, I believe. Could be wrong, but that, as far as the when, I think it was around that time. And yeah, so the recording quality is quite early. It's crazy how much things have improved, because it's almost like a whisper, even with the remastering of these recordings. You can barely hear these players, but you can hear what they're up to. And it turns out one of the pieces I turned on had the triplet motif all throughout. It was Rêve d'enfant by Eugenie Zai, played by Eugenie Zai. I think Rêve d'enfant means child's dream, if I remember French class. It's supposed to be one of his finer works. It's a really simple piece, just for violin and piano. And yeah, so I don't believe it starts with a triplet motif, but the triplets are everywhere. So I had the manuscript in front of me, looking at how it's written. Triplets are everywhere. Guess what? Well, Eugenie Zai himself plays the triplets like this. So, and there was, without fail, there was no point where he ever played. He never did that. Tastefully for him, it was a triplet goes like this. Dun, 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 dun. So case in point that even when you have experts, and with all due respect, experts like Pamela Frank, who have a wonderful career, wonderful podium to uh, teach and tell students how things should be. Maybe she's just one data point of many, because I applied what she thought was correct to Eugenie Zai, and I actually prefer the way her opinion on that. I like the fat French triplets. But if Eugenie Zai doesn't even apply what um, people are commonly mistaken to execute a triplet, where are we with opinions on how things are supposed to be done and interpreted? And a final example is I was playing for the conductor of the Cleveland Orchestra for a master class at one point, and I think in early 2000s, yeah, that would be about right. And I was playing the Adagio C major movement from the Bach Sonata number Sonata number 3. So it's the one that has a wonderful motif of sort of walking. Such a great movement. The I probably played it around that speed, maybe a little slower. And the 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 pedagogue that I was playing for, he was at the time, I think he might still be. He was concertmaster of Cleveland, which is one of America's finest orchestras, I think. Highly respected man, and been around the block as far as I'm sure he's heard a student play Bach before. So he's had some strong opinion on the tempo of this piece. And I could be wrong, but I think it's Adagio. I'll make a correction in the comments if it isn't. But yeah, there is a walking quality to it, so an andante quality. But maybe I took that. I was perhaps not feeling the walking, or maybe it was too fast. Anyway, he asked me, "Hey Nate, what do you visualize when you hear this piece?" And I remember reading some really fine liner notes from guitarist Paul Gabraith, who plays 12-string. 12-string? No, it's got to be 8-string. 8-string guitar, classical guitar, and it's probably one of my favorite classical CDs because he plays the 6 solo sonatas for guitar instead of violin, and he makes his changes so that things are possible on his instrument, of course. And he invented a way of holding the instrument as well, so that it's a little easier to execute. Anyway, great player and great CD. And he, in his liner notes at one point, I remember reading something about this movement, saying it was the sound to him. It conveyed this imagery of Jesus Christ walking with the cross on his back. And whether you're atheist, Christian, or whatever, it's quite a visual for this movement of this pain, because this movement is painful. It's highly chromatic. It doesn't really resolve. Even I believe it ends on the dominant or something. Yeah, it's just so moody, and this idea of falling with every step because of the weight, it's just visually it's striking. So I remember the concertmaster of Cleveland, William Purcell, he asked me, "Hey Nate, what do you visualize?" And I took this liner notes to heart, for years at this point. I told him about this feeling of well, I visualize Jesus Christ walking with the cross on his back, and each of the each of the big beats are sort of a step, right? So, and William Prussell was a pretty funny guy, and he said, well, if it was, that imagery is great, but you wouldn't picture Jesus Christ like running with the cross, to get to his death, because I think he was basically thinking I was playing it too fast. So why would this visualization? Why would it be you be walking quickly as if, hey, I need to get this over with. Let's go. Time is money. Let's go. So that imagery stayed with me. I didn't want to change it, but the teacher said, you're playing too fast. So at that point, I was like, yeah, you know what? Maybe I was just like I was too ahead of things. It needs to be on the slow side. So I took that to heart, and I brought it to Janos Starker in grad school. And, I played my tempo, and I was standing on his cello box. I don't think he has too many violinists come his way. And I'm about 6'2.5" or 6'3". So I was almost touching his studio roof, his ceiling rather. And it was quite silly. I felt like really out of place. But anyway, just wanted to talk about my memory a little bit. But anyway, Janos Starker said, Nate, what are you doing? Why is it so slow? Like, time is money. Like, let's go. And he basically doubled my tempo. I don't know if I ever performed it at that tempo, but this is someone you'd think where at his age, he was extremely old. I don't know what age he died, but he was getting up there at that point. You'd think someone with his experience, his feeling for classical music, which is, it's the more I get older, the more settled into tempos I become. I feel like as you're younger, you're very trepidatious. You're just constantly pushing forward. It's just a natural thing with youthful playing. You'd think at his age he'd be, hey, it needs to be, on its heels. This is a movement of colors, and it just sort of, there's a gravity to it. It's not ahead. He wanted me to double the speed, play it so much faster than I've even heard it. And, I ran passages at that speed, and it's interesting. But he was swearing by that interpretation to be correct. So there you have this huge contradiction again, where you have one of the most masterful cellists of the 20th century telling me 2x for the speed of this piece, even though it's adagio. And then you have someone that's a renowned pedagogue that is saying, go way slow on this adagio. So I haven't played that particular piece in a while, but I don't have an opinion on that tempo anymore. So I'll leave it to you just to chew on that. But that's just a case in point again, where you just cannot take any of these things to the bank. Their opinions, their data points, they're interesting, and it's up to you to digest these opinions and throw them away. Perhaps before, if you're in a conservatory situation, throw them away after your exams, if you have any playing exams, because you don't want to piss off your jurors. But yeah, take all these ideas, throw them in the garbage, because you're going to have to regurgitate all the data points that you've learned about and just come to your own opinions about these things, because there is no correct way about hardly anything. Even Glenn Gould would not typically, but Glenn Gould was known to just completely throw out Beethoven markings of piano. If you think there's nothing more sacred than a marking that Beethoven could write, then it all's for naught. So feel free to take all these markings, take all these opinions that come your way, and let them in, throw them out, and then start the needle at zero again, and come to your own conclusions about how you're supposed to interpret music. Okay.